The Greek historian Herodotus wrote about 7 great architectural structures. That list became known as the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Of those 7 achievements, 4 were destroyed by earthquake, 2 were destroyed by fire. Only 1 is still standing, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. This pyramid today has a height of 450 feet or 137 meters. It was the tallest structure in the world for over 3,800 years. And now it's a popular tourist destination. People from all over the world will travel to Cairo and stand next to this enormous structure and just wonder about all the manpower and materials and work that went into creating it. And there are others, like today's guest, Alex, who look at the Great Pyramid and think, I'd like to climb to the top of that pyramid. And Alex came up with a plan to do just that. What he didn't plan on was getting caught. Real people in unreal situations.
There is a girl hanging by her broken leg from the telephone wire.
And I called 911 and I said, I found a baby.
I turned around. I see a gun pointed at me close enough I could touch it.
She would hold our heads on the water all the time.
He levels the gun, pulls the trigger, and I go down.
Her eyes were full of tears. She didn't want to leave us.
My hair catches on fire.
I swear to God, this image is burned in my head for the rest of my life.
I'm Scott Johnson, and this is What Was That Like? What were you doing in Cairo?
You know, it's funny when you look back on the path that your life has taken and how many events you could trace back to just a random choice, sort of an arbitrary event of chance type deal. When I entered college, I had to pick a foreign language. And I kind of had done like the French thing in high school, and I wanted something a little different. And there were some options, and I saw Arabic on the list. And I kind of just, sure, I'll sign up for Arabic 101. Like, let's go. And that decision has cascaded and changed so much that has followed in my life, including the story we're about to talk about. So that studying Arabic, my college had a relationship with the American University in Cairo to do an exchange sort of thing. And so for my third year, I signed up to do that for a full year. I was at the American University in Cairo studying Arabic, taking other courses as well. But from like the fall 2006 semester through the academic year.
So you're a college student, you're in Egypt studying the Arabic language, and you had this crazy idea. How did this idea get into your head?
The break between semesters, the winter break, I came back to the US. My family wanted to see me. While I was home, I was on Facebook, and I came across a classmate of mine who was taking Arabic with me, who posted these photographs that were just like, wait, what? They looked like they were from on top of the Great Pyramid at Giza. And as I read the captions and the comments and all that, it was, yes, indeed, that's exactly what was going on. And I thought, like, how did you possibly do this? So I was anxious to ask him about it. I returned to Cairo, flew back to Cairo sometime in early January. And when I saw him, I was like, dude, we need to have a conversation. How was that really on top of the pyramid? And he said, yeah, it was. It's like, how did you make that work? He told me, that he went late at night he and a friend to sort of the monument site, gave a guard £100, which at the time was about US $20, just to let him enter the park. And the guy, let him through. This is very believable. Like, bribery. Greasing palms is an effective way to get things done more efficiently in Egypt and across the Middle East. Because like 1/3 of Egyptians live on less than $2 a day. So $20 in someone's pocket is a big deal. So I was like, really? Wow, that's that easy, huh? And he said, yeah. So that put the idea in my head, especially because I had been an avid rock climber since I was about 13 or so. So clearly I wanted to climb this.
This makes me think of something that parents say. If your friend jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you do it too? Apparently you would.
Well, it's a fair point. I was 20 at the time, and there were all kinds of decisions that I made when I was 20 that I would neither repeat nor endorse now. So, not fully developed brains and whatnot. It just sounded really cool.
I'll give you that. It does sound cool.
Yeah.
So you were an avid rock climber, you said already, and you had a rock climbing friend, Ryan. How did you guys meet?
Yes, he became my best friend. We met at our local climbing gym in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I'm from. When we first met each other, we didn't like each other at all. And then became just the closest of friends, spent all our time together. So close. So we had such a close friendship that I was going to turn 21 in March of 2007. And sort of as a birthday present, I think he was in college in Massachusetts at the time, booked a ticket to come see me in Cairo. And we were going to hang out for a week. Yeah. So anyway, we met at the climbing gym and we were climbing partners, sort of, there's a climber, there's a belayer, right, down managing the ropes and all that. And so people typically climb in like partnerships, and that's the kind of relationships that we had.
So it seems like a climbing partner coming to visit you, and you had this crazy idea of climbing the pyramid. Like, it's like all the details are sort of coming together. You wanted him to go with you, obviously.
Yeah.
How did you bring him into this?
Kind of as a surprise, and kind of because I wasn't so sure yet myself. I mean, I knew I really wanted to do it, but I was nervous about doing that.
Of course, because this is highly illegal.
Yes. So, I was really thinking hard about it, and I didn't want him to be, super jazzed about the idea and then find myself sort of thinking, maybe this isn't such a good idea. So I waited until he was in Cairo, and he was totally in. He was like, that's amazing. That's it. Like, we should do this.
He was there for almost a week before you even told him, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I recall, it was sort of like the climb happened on his penultimate night in Cairo. I think I told him maybe the day before that. So 3 days before he was to depart, probably in the morning, because I kind of had to, he had questions, it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. So I sort of was I had studied Arabic for a couple of years in the culture. He's coming into this totally blind. So he definitely had some questions, but then he was in.
But this climb isn't like typical climbing the side of a mountain. Do you need to take equipment or ropes or?
For the pyramid? No.
Because it's at an angle, 90 degrees. What is the angle that you'd be climbing?
I don't know, actually. It's a really good question, but it's not quite what you described. The angle is not as gentle as it looks from the ground, it turns out. I found that out sort of halfway up the climb when I looked below me, and I thought it would sort of fan out like a staircase. And if you fall, you're going to probably maybe like skipping a stone across a pond. You might hit a few of but you're going straight to the ground.
You planned it obviously at night, just for less visibility.
Yes.
What happened? You guys started by drinking a lot of coffee.
Egyptians might get mad at me for saying this, but what you think of as Turkish coffee, right? Heavy grounds toward the bottom. It's very, very strong, typically with a lot of sugar. So yes, we were certainly pounding that to make sure that we would be awake even just to get there. And then also the energy for the climb.
As if the adrenaline wouldn't do the trick.
There was that, but that was a nervous energy but the coffee helps, certainly.
What time do you leave to set out to head toward the pyramid?
I would say it had to be between like 1 and 3 a.m., something like that, to hail a taxi. And Cairo is a city of 18 million. people. I mean, there's stuff going on all night long. So you can very easily find a taxi, but you can't really just hail the taxi and say, like, take me to the pyramids. It's going to raise an eyebrow, right? So sort of, we hailed a taxi and I gave the location to be, there's kind of like a area outside the main gate. It's actually a Pizza Hut that has probably one of the best views of the monument site from a Pizza Hut that's there. So I sort of gave that as a location and just had him drop us off there near the main ticket booth of the pyramids.
It almost seems like you're overly cautious. Like, what's the taxi driver going to say? Is he going to call the police? Like, these guys wanted to go to the pyramids at 3 a.m. Something's up.
Right, which of course is absurd and wouldn't have, like, he doesn't care. Like, he just wants his fare, right? And so I think you're onto something there, that it was indicative of not anxiety, but like the nervousness around like not wanting to screw this up. Getting into legal trouble in, a foreign country doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, they have a whole show about it, right? What's it called? Locked Up.
We've all seen Locked Up Abroad.
Right. So, it's not usually on people's bucket lists. So yeah, there probably were some steps that we took that were overly cautious, but better safe than sorry type deal.
There are multiple pyramids at this location. Why did you choose this particular one?
Well, I guess I can think of 3 reasons. One, it's the one that my classmate did. So I knew, like, if there were other factors that made him decide on that, whatever, I knew that one was doable because I know someone who did it. 1. 2, it's the tallest. I mean, there's something to that. It's 481 feet, if I've got that right, tall, about 187 meters. And so, if you're going to climb a pyramid, you might as well climb the tallest one. And probably most importantly is its peak. The smaller of the 2 is a true complete pyramid that has like a pointed, top for reasons that I don't know. The larger of the 2 does not. It's missing sort of the top couple percent of the stones. And there's a flat landing or kind of a platform up there. So you could actually summit and like hang out.
Yeah, that's a big advantage for sure.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
So you get there and you're starting to survey how to get in.
Yeah, kind of like just checking the area out because like we don't know what we're doing. I got as much advice from my classmate as I could, but when you're actually in there, it's kind of like, well, what do you do? So we're walking around. At the time there was a perimeter fence, but the security was so poor that stretches the definition of both perimeter and fence to call it that. And we did find a gap that was away from the main entry, the main entrance. Not like a gaping hole, but it was obvious that it would be fairly easy to get through. And so we thought, we'll just give that a try. So we did. Well, that area was guarded. Out pops a guard and sort of, whoa, stop. I was pretty nervous at this point. I mean, I had done the sort of the bribery thing, tipping let's call it tipping, for sort of casual things. If you like extra service at like you can get things done very quickly. If I had to deal with government paperwork because I was a student abroad, you could, the person at the counter, slip them some money and be in line faster, that type deal. But nothing like this. So I was pretty nervous at this point. But when the guards stopped us, it was like, okay, here we go. And so I reached into my jacket and I pulled out £100 note. And I sort of said, like, oh, I'm sorry, for the, inconvenience here. I hope that this will, sort of make up for that. And he was not having any of it. He backed away, palms up. No, I can't take that. And like, get out, basically.
What bad luck. You run into a guard with a little bit of integrity.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the chances of that were pretty low. The chance that the spot was even guarded was extremely low.
Because, this is middle of the night. There's normal viewing tourist hours during the day, right? Nobody's going to be wandering around there that time of night except for the security guards.
And people who are trying to break into.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, this was a spot where there was not a natural security post. He was like, and he was not, obviously, if we had seen him before we tried to get in, we wouldn't have tried to go there. So he was probably just hanging out at a sort of unofficial post. It was a surprise.
So it seems like this is a critical part of your adventure here. Did you at that point think, okay, well, I guess it's not going to happen?
You're right. It was a critical point because we were dejected. Sort of the plan, the only method that I had learned how to make this work failed. But we weren't willing to give up just yet. But we are bummed. We're, walking around perimeter sort of discussing between ourselves, like, do we just go home? Like, no, we should, like, we're here, Ryan, you're leaving soon to go back home. We're going to do this. And it would kind of go back and forth like that. Eventually, we find ourselves back near the main gate and are still sort of discussing what we ought to do when one of us, I don't remember who, says, like, look at the guy, the very main security booth, like right at the entrance, like, check it out. And the guard there was elbow on knee, head in palm, snoring asleep, totally out. And so Ryan and I, sort of exchanged glances and shrug. This is our in.
And there were no other guards in the area that could have seen you.
Surprisingly, not that I recall. I think there was like the one sort of main gatekeeper, if you will. And then we didn't know what we were going to find inside. But there was a shopkeeper who, like I said, again, like being Cairo at 3 a.m., there are still little sort of bodega type things that are open. And he was leaning in the doorway of he was, alert and awake. And he saw us standing there.
How far away was this shop from the main gate?
Yeah, I'm really bad with distances, but I would say a couple 100 feet.
Like half a football field. Close enough to he could see that you guys were kind of walking around.
Yes, and that we
suspiciously.
And that we were interested in the entrance to the pyramids. Whatever, yes. And so it's kind of a different version of the bribing the guard thing. But I did have enough. I had, only been in country for 7 months, 8 months, whatever it was. But I did have enough street knowledge to know that we needed to patronize this guy's shop if we were going to mollify him to sort of turn a blind eye to whatever it is that we were about to do. So I was like, okay, we got to go do this. So we did. We went in. I bought a bag of peanut M&Ms, little one of kind of mini size ones. I don't remember what Ryan got. And that did work. I mean, the guy, I think he stayed at the cash register. He didn't even come back to the doorway. So we were on our way. Guard was still asleep. And so we just literally snuck right past him, just walked straight through into the main entrance.
So the gate wasn't locked or closed or anything. It was just he would be there spotting somebody coming in if he were awake.
Yeah, like I said at the time in 2007, it really was quite porous. The whole thing was very penetrable. And so he was supposed to sort of act as the gate. And he was tired.
So now you're in.
We're in. So just to orient in space, when you're looking at the main entrance, it sort of is the iconic photo. The Sphinx is like in your face, right? We're straight ahead. And the pyramids are kind of staggered. The two main pyramids at the site are sort of staggered behind that. So when we enter, the Sphinx is in front of us and on the left. And, it is obviously a very popular tourist site. So there is a trotted path to follow that people would walk to go see things. We're just walking on that. And there's a retaining wall on the left-hand side that, for whatever reason, I guess, to separate the sort of the actual site from the walking path. And we were kind of, not cartoonishly sneaking, tiptoeing, but we were ducked a little bit, crouching and using the retaining wall for some cover because there was a maintenance crew doing something on the Sphinx itself. A pretty sizable one, actually. It's way too hot during the day in Cairo to probably do that kind of work. And plus, it detracts from the tourist factor, right? So they must do that stuff at night. And so we didn't want them to spot us. It was unlikely that they would have if we had just walked normally. But again, we're nervous. So we're kind of using...
But they're just doing their job, though. They're not there to guard the place.
No. It was very clear that they were either... it didn't even seem like they were, Egyptologists doing some kind of... It was like some kind of preservation work. There was scaffolding that was involved, et cetera. So who knows what they were. And they were very involved, chatting amongst themselves. Egyptians are very charismatic and charming and love humor. And so lots of like boisterous laughter, and they were not paying attention to us. But nonetheless, we did, use the retaining wall as some cover. At some point, we like kind of paused and had a whisper conversation among ourselves. I don't remember what the decision in front of us was, but like, should we, do this or this? When we hear a sound all of a sudden, and we turn around, and it was another, 10 feet away, a guard, but he's snoring. He's also asleep. He clearly, this also was not an official post, but he clearly had, maybe to avoid the detection of his supervisor, wanted to grab a quick nap. He was right there. It was like, okay, we gotta go. So we start moving quite a bit more quickly past him, just in case we would wake him up and we'd be detected. We're past the Sphinx. Now it's behind us on the left, sleeping guard that we didn't expect behind us on the right, on the main path. And at the monument site on the left-hand side, it's no longer there, but it was really weird. I never went inside this thing, but it was this museum that supposedly held something called a solar boat. It was called the Giza Solar Boat Museum. This held an actual artifact, an actual ship called a solar boat. And they were the vessels that were used to transport the body of the pharaoh upon his death to the burial site at the pyramid. And so it was like the boat from life to the afterlife was the idea. But it looked like, have you ever flown internationally into Dulles?
No.
Okay. Well, they have these weird they're like pods that carry you from the plane to the gate. It just looked like a weird capsule. That is on the left. Then there's the path. And then the one side of the pyramid is directly on the right. So we're between those two things. We're there. We are at the base of the pyramid. We're using the museum thing and the pyramid itself as cover from both sides. There's supposed to be guards at each of the 4 points at the base of the pyramids, but we noticed that on the far side, away from us, there was a sort of a makeshift campfire going, and they were gathered around that and talking amongst themselves. I'm sure that, the night shift nothing's going to happen, right? Nothing ever happens. And so they weren't staying at their posts, and they were just doing their own thing. We noticed that it was a concern, but it was not, we were not thinking it was likely that they would stop and turn around and see 2 people standing in the dark.
How cold was it?
February is a month where there's a lot of sandstorms. And also for some reason, it's a month where people burn a lot of trash, and they do that at night, and that kind of warms it up. But this is in, maybe the 3rd week of March. I don't really remember. I had a jacket on, but Ryan didn't. He just had a t-shirt on. So it must have not been that cold.
And once you start climbing, you're going to be warm anyway.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. But this was a pivotal moment here. We're standing at the base, and I'd be curious to know if Ryan would agree with this. But if he had at that point said, "This is not a good idea, man. Let's just get out of here," I would have said, "Yep, you're right. Let's go." We'll be on our way. I know I would have felt that way. I wondered if he would say that he felt the same way, that if I had said, "Nah, let's forget about this," if he would have fought me on that, or if he would have also. Well, but that's not the way it went anyway. It ended up going where I looked at him and I said, "Well, I guess we better start climbing." And Ryan looked back at me and he said, "Yeah, I guess we should." And he started. Off he goes. And it was like, oh shit,
I love that. No hesitation. Just get going.
He absolutely did not. I think he was maybe waiting for like a green light from me. Who knows I don't know what he was thinking, but he's off. He's off to the races. So I was like, oh, okay, shit, we're doing this. Here we go. So we started climbing.
What's the texture of the surface of the wall? Did you know what to expect, and was it what you expected?
Yeah, I did kind of know what to expect. So on one of the sides surfaces, there is a tourist site. So I don't remember how far up, but you can go inside of the pyramid and there's like hieroglyphics on the inside and you can see where they would bury and so, some version of quote unquote climbing the pyramid is legal and in fact encouraged as part of the experience. So it's not like you're not allowed to touch them. People, are all over them all the time. So, and I had been before just to go and see the pyramids because I'm in Egypt. So I did kind of know what to expect about that. Climbing it when there isn't like an ushered way to do it was a different experience. These things are massive. It's got about 2.3 million stones, the whole thing. And the lightest in weight of them is about 2.5 tons. And at the bottom, they're near 10 tons. It's just absolutely enormous. So I knew about the texture. It is true, though, on the angle thing about, the angle of incline that we were about to scale. I did envision, I don't know why, more of a staircase type experience. I'm gonna step up and push myself up with one leg, and then I'm gonna do it on the next thing. And it was not like that at all. And that's why I referenced the size of these stones.
Yeah. So what was the process of as you went up? How did you gain altitude?
Yeah. So they do it. It did change as you ascend because the stones do get smaller. But when you're near the bottom, the next stone that you need to get on top of is about waist level. So you're clearly not in a staircase type experience like I had been expecting. I would put my elbow or my forearm kind of on the stone in front of me that I needed to get on top of, and then hoist, a leg up to match where on that stone, and then kind of use that as leverage to roll the rest of my body. Not roll, it wasn't like that, but as leverage to, get the rest of my body up on top and then rinse and repeat.
So at the top of each of the individual stones, there was a little bit of a ledge?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
There was a sufficient ledge to, it wasn't like, I'm going to lose my balance and fall. You were comfortably on the next stone. Maybe about halfway up, I did look down. People that are afraid of heights don't look down type thing. But, we were fairly experienced rock climbers. Like that was not a problem. So I looked beneath me, and that was a little nerve-wracking. It does not fan out like a staircase like you would expect. When you look at any picture of the pyramid that's taken from the ground, it really looks, I don't know why this is different when you're climbing it, but it really does look like sort of a gentle. And so if you were to fall, then it might be like falling down the stairs, really like, down, hitting each step along the way. And that is not the case. You might skid across a couple of them, but you're pretty much headed straight to the ground if you fall once you reach a certain height. So that did make me a little nervous. But at this point, if you're halfway up, it takes just as much effort to go down as it does to just do the other half. So there was no thought of stopping. I just noticed it and it was like, oh, okay. I would say maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the way up, we do start to hear some sound, and we stopped and paused because we didn't really know what was going on, like what was starting. Well, it was the adhan, which is the loudspeaker that is affixed on top of mosques that announces the call to prayer. Muslims pray 5 times a day, and this had to be what's called the Fajr prayer. It happens a little bit before dawn. So one, Allahu Akbar is begins the call to prayer, and that's what was happening. One guy, the person whose job that is called a muezzin, Cairo has about 4,000 mosques in it. They call it the city of 1,000 mosques, but it's much more. I think now they've synchronized everything and they only have one muezzin. And so it's sort of it's a standard system. And that was not true then. Every mosque had their own muezzin who would announce the calls to prayer. And not everyone's watch is on the same time, right?
They didn't synchronize. Huh?
Yeah. And the way they would chant, everyone had their own little style, So one guy starts, and then it starts to swell as the other mosques join in, and eventually it was this cacophony. The sound enveloped us. We're out in the desert, and it was like sort of a moment of, we're not in Kansas anymore. Wow, this is really cool.
What a unique soundtrack for the adventure you were having right there.
Exactly right. The lights of Cairo on one side. The pyramids are not remote out in the desert. I mean, like I said, the main gate, there's a Pizza Hut right across the way. It sort of is at the edge of a megalopolis. And so the lights of Cairo on the one side and the sound of this call to prayer, and then the barren desert on the other side. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a moment to pause and soak in. The whole climb, I don't totally know, took about maybe 45 minutes or an hour, maybe. Ryan summited first, and I followed not too long after. I was really surprised at how big the platform is. Like I said, it's this pyramid has a flat top to it. You can't get a sense of, at least maybe I'm just bad at this, but a sense of the size from the ground about how big it would be. But I kind of had envisioned, not that we would have to stand in place for fear of falling over the edge, but I didn't think there would be enough room to really kind of hang out. And it's huge. I would say as an adult, you could take maybe 8 to 10 wide stride steps from one side to the other. There's a lot of room up there. I got to the top. Ryan was seated with his legs kind of dangling over the top platform. And, hey. And he looked back and said, hey. And there we were. We were on top of the Great Pyramid.
It's over 480 feet tall, which is 187 meters. So you're up almost the height of a 50-story building.
Well, Scott, I had never thought about it yes. I'd never thought about it.
Yeah. I can imagine you'd be a little concerned that if you got up close to the top and slipped and fell, that would be a serious fall.
It would definitely be a serious fall, but it really is, the nature of that platform is such that if you're even just slightly careful, you're good. You're safe.
What was up there? What was it like being on top of this thing?
We had enough sort of, I guess, ambient light or, from, I don't know whether it was from the city or what, but you could see on the surface of the platform, a bunch of names were carved into it. So some were from the 1800s, people that had done this, others more recent. I think I read somewhere afterward that in the 70s, this was a very popular thing to do. Someone had left up there in order to continue this tradition, like a Swiss Army knife. And it wasn't, I don't remember how, I'd have to ask Ryan, but it sort of said on the knife itself, on the plastic sort of red surface of a big Swiss Army knife, welcome to the club, use this to carve your name into the top of the pyramid. We were not interested in defacing the monument. And so Ryan pocketed the pocket knife. And I don't know, but to my knowledge, I would imagine he still has it to this day. That's quite a memento. I ate my peanut M&Ms, and we're just sort of hanging out, looking out over the city's lights and walking around and
taking a few selfies.
Well, Ryan, like I said, was really into analog photography, darkroom, was really into the whole process. And so, the whole trip, he had been very interested in achieving or obtaining quality photographs that he could develop then back in the US. I had it was called a power shot. It was a Canon, a simple little thing, but it did have a timer. The platform has this, it looks like an antenna almost. It's like a wooden structure that it mimics the completion of the actual pyramid shape. And I don't remember exactly how, but you are able to place a camera somewhere such that you could then do a timer and have a picture taken. And Ryan and I both did that. And I took a short video of I wish I had taken more, to be honest, as it got lighter. But I just have one that's maybe half a minute long. It's sort of like, this is fucking cool. We are on top of the pyramid right now. And we were really just taking it all in. It really is an enormous, one of the biggest, most populous cities in the world on one end, and then like quintessential, what you think of as the desert on the other. And so there we were.
How long did you stay up there?
Yeah, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would say. We got a little bit of daylight. You can see the other pyramid, the smaller one that is truly pointed. So that was cool. We were looking down sort of upon that and just really were kind of laughing at, this is just insane what we just did. So yeah, it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. It was great. It was truly a magical experience. I will never do anything this cool ever again in my life, I'm quite certain. Then it was time to, get ready to head on down. Young 20-somethings didn't really think things through as much as one perhaps might have. And the problem that we did not anticipate for the descent was the effect of the sunrise. In a big city, when it's dawn, when the sun rises, tall buildings are blocking a lot of light that increases as the day goes on and the sun gets higher in the sky. But at the beginning, we all know what I'm talking about. That was not the case here. So when the sun crested, it might as well have been noon. I mean, there's nothing out in the desert, there's nothing to block the sunlight from being just everywhere. It was day. As soon as it was sunrise, it was like a normal, full-on midday day.
And obviously, being at the top of the pyramid, there's no tall buildings around you to block the sun from you. You were the tallest.
Yes, we were. Yeah, that's right. And we were also very interested in not being detected. And detection is obviously significantly easier when there's sunlight. And so this is the combination of these factors created a problem. It was time to start going down.
Obviously, getting up is optional. Getting down is mandatory.
That's a good point. Descending is mandatory. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. And I guess the guards around the campfire at the base thought, well, shit, it probably ought to get back to work now. The day is going to start. And so they resumed their posts. It was time to start descending quickly. we realized the situation that our chances of being detected were increasing rapidly by the minute.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm putting myself in your shoes. I'm thinking now it's daylight. Obviously, somebody's going to see us as we come down.
Yeah, we were really hoping to avoid that. The cover of night was basically everything. First of all, it was a time when the guard was asleep. And second of all, obviously, it's dark. I was definitely nervous about what was going to happen. And they are at each of the 4 points of the pyramid. So it's not like there was a more strategic area for the exit. At some point, we're going to go from the last stone to the ground, and then we're going to be between two guards.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you go down the same surface that you climbed?
We did not.
And what was your reasoning behind which way to go down?
That's a good question. So I believe we went down the side where, like I said, there's sort of is a part of the monument site where you can go in. I guess we just figured that maybe that would be more stable because for safety reasons, they would curate that area for normal tourist traffic. I'm kind of post hoc thinking about what the reasoning might be, but I'm not sure that we put a whole lot of thought into it. We just knew we needed to, if we were going to evade detection at all, we needed to get going.
And what's the process for going down? I'm picturing you sliding down on your butt.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, you sort of scoot your butt across the surface of the stone, reach down with your toe, and then just put the rest of the weight on your one foot, and then get the other foot down. And that process gets more necessary as you near the bottom. Like I said, the stones, they get smaller. They're smaller on top and they're larger at the bottom. And so I don't remember what the very, very top few steps were like, but at some point it's pretty much scoot your butt, put 1 foot down on the lower one, and then put the rest of your body weight on it. And about a third of the way down, sure enough, I guess a guard looking upward for whatever reason, we were spotted. We were spotted, and he was not happy. He was really, really not happy. He sort of was down, 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 pointing forcefully, like, get down here. So we picked up the pace even more, and I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous at this point. I really don't know why. I don't know how I thought that this was not going to be the outcome. I mean, I guess we needed to leave. I should have asked my classmate about a safe descent.
Yeah, the exit strategy. That would have been a good thing to get from him. Yeah.
It really would have been. I was taken in by the romance of the barricades of just doing the climb itself. Didn't really think about the rest of it. So my heart is racing now. I realize we're in trouble, and quite frankly, I don't know what kind of trouble it's going to be. And Ryan is very scared. As we're scooting along, he sort of turns to me and says, "How do you say I'm sorry in Arabic?" And I told him, and he, like, his voice trembling. He totally butchered it when he got down, but he tried. And I have no idea where I must have seen this in a movie, and my brain in, sort of a panicky state, amygdala activated sort of situation, was able to access this idea. But I realized that they don't want evidence of this possibility getting out there. And so they're probably going to take our cameras and get rid of our photos. And I said, "Hey, Ryan, switch out your film that you took pictures with, put in a blank. And I'm going to switch out my memory card and put in a blank one." And so we did that. That was sort of as we were descending. And of course, the other guards now from the 3 posts have all gathered around the one that spotted us to sort of handle the situation. If they were to seize my memory card, they would be seizing a blank, and likewise with his roll of camera film. When we get to the bottom, Ryan says he's sorry. I took a different approach, sort of very overly confident, trying to do the whole Egyptian charm, charisma thing, and just sort of, I offered the guy, "Hey, do you want a cigar? Do you want a cigarette?" And he was like, "No, I don't want a cigarette. I'm angry." He was like, "You are in trouble." So, but I was kind of, "Hey, good morning. Isn't it beautiful?" Trying to play this down a bit. And that was not effective at all.
Well, the fact that you were already up there, it made them look foolish because somehow you had gotten past them.
Well, that factors into what eventually happens, because that's exactly right. It probably was a bit of that. They're thinking, great, now we have this whole process that we're going to have to go through, and they were unhappy, and they sort of ushered us to a security booth. I think it was near that weird museum thing. I don't know, 6 people or so could fit inside the booth. They had us sit on a bench, and they were discussing among themselves sort of what to do. Sure enough, they did. Of course, one of the first things they did, they seized the cameras, and they grabbed a blank memory card, and they seized Ryan's camera, and they seized a blank roll of film.
And did you try to fake disappointment that, "Oh no, there goes our pictures"?
Probably not. I think we probably were like looking kind of down, just sort of like away from but in my periphery, I could see what they were doing, and I'm sure I couldn't hide maybe a tiny smirk. Again, I was learning Arabic at this point, 3 years. Wouldn't have called myself fluent in Arabic until after about 15 years of studying it. So I could sort of get by with some everyday stuff, but I don't really know what they're talking about. They're clearly having a discussion on how to handle this. One of them kept turning to us and "Inta, kalabush," and gestured with wrists near one another. Clearly, that's how I learned that word. You are arrested. You are detained. You are in trouble. I was probably the one that spotted us that he did it like 3 times or so. Ryan was he's like, man, I have to get on a plane like day after tomorrow. Like, I can't, that's not happening. I can't do that. That's it. Like, well, it's not really up to me, man. I don't know what to tell you. We're in some shit here. At some point, it was time to act. And I did exactly what you suggested earlier. I sort of said, hey, okay, let's all hang loose a little bit. You can take us downtown and put us in jail and we can do that whole thing, but it isn't going to reflect very well upon all of you because we clearly were able to get past you and you weren't doing your jobs very well. So it's in everyone's best interest if we can find a way to work this out. And there was more huddling and discussing among themselves. They were into it. They bought into it. It's like, whew, geez. Part of this has to do with American privilege in Egypt. The American passport is kind of a shield to a lot of things. It's unfortunate. 20% of Egypt's GDP on average historically is from tourism. And so if there was a news story about harsh treatment, justified or not, of Americans by Egyptian forces or officials, that is bad. And so because of that, and because of the reliance of Egypt's economy upon tourism revenue, it's a shield. The passport's a bit of a shield in ways that it is not for Egyptians in their own country. It's not cool. So I was leveraging sort of that, I guess, plus these guys wanting to keep their jobs and our wanting not to go to jail to come up with this idea where, hey, let's just be cool and everybody go about their business, So one says, come with me. And so we follow him and he ushered us over to this, like, I guess I'll call it a holding cell because that's at least the function it was playing right now. There were remnants of a campfire and there was a bunch of camel shit in there. It was just sort of not an official tourist site. I don't think there were like hieroglyphics or anything of, related to antiquity. But for some reason, a mostly enclosed walled structure where someone had a fire at some point and camels released themselves. And he told us, just wait, do not move from in here. Wait until 8 a.m. When the park opens to the public and then just go. That's pretty much what we did. I think we probably had to sit in there for maybe another hour and a half or so. There are photos of us sitting in that thing too. Ryan actually looked pretty alert, but like my eyes I'm tired, This was a pretty exhausting experience. I'm kind of like looking like I'm about to go to sleep.
Aside from the physical part of the climb, I mean, it's got to be mentally exhausting to,
yes.
To almost get caught and then actually get caught. And
yes. And I felt a sense of responsibility and sort of throughout the whole trip, frankly, when he was there, because objectively, when I look back on it, upon reflection, I didn't know shit. But I was the host, and he was the guest. And it's like, hey, you're doing this Arabic Egypt thing. I'm going to trust your judgment on these things. But I felt like, and that adds to the mental energy that was involved in, I felt the obligation to resolve the situation and handle the interactions with the guards and all of that. And Ryan was kind of just there at everyone's mercy. So I felt really bad about that. And it was, yes, very draining. We got some funny pictures from inside there too. So that's what we did. At 8 o'clock, the monument site opened to the public, and we walked right past a main gate guard who did a double take of sort of like, wait a minute, hold on. How are you coming from the inside? And how could you be a tourist interested in the only still standing ancient wonder of the world and spend like 2 minutes and then go, yeah, I'm cool. Saw it. Let's go. Sort of like, what is going on here?
Didn't even ask to get your hand stamped or something, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, exactly. Exactly right. And so he was just sort of like, what is going on here? Yeah, we did not engage. I immediately hailed the first taxi that I possibly could. And they start lining up around that area at that time. So it's very easy to sort of get in the car and go. And we were just laughing our asses off the whole ride home. Just like, what did we just do? That was when the good adrenaline like kicked back in, and we're safe. We're in safety. We even got to keep our pictures. We accomplished our goal, and it was wild.
Best outcome you could have hoped for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, or not being detected. That'd be the only thing I would add. Yeah, right. But given the detection, certainly the best outcome that could have happened. When we get back to my apartment, I had an apartment with the first semester I lived in the student dormitory where the study abroad kids mostly stay, but also some Egyptians stay there as well. And I met and became very good friends with an Egyptian named Mina. He's still a very good friend to this day. For the second semester, he and I had rented an apartment together. We just said, let's get our own place and do that. So we get back to my apartment and we're, it's early and we're being loud. And so Mina wakes up and it comes out and rubs his eyes like, what the hell? What is going on here? And we just said dude, we've got to tell you what we just did. And as we describe the events of the night, his mouth, his jaw is increasing, is dropping gradually. What? He was in total shock. He said, you do realize that if I did something like this, I would almost certainly be in a jail cell right now, probably being beaten for doing this. I cannot believe you guys tried to do this. And this is another, this speaks to the whole American privilege bit of, it's kind of, it's sad. I had some access to his heritage that he was barred from. So I load the memory card in my computer. I mean, immediately, right? Because Ryan's going to do his whole artsy and I'm going to use a dark room. And I was like, he needed to do that later back in the US. And I'm like, and Mina wants to see him too. He's like, show me, you have pictures? Show me, let's see them. So I load them up and we were checking out the pictures, watching the video, and pretty much immediately, right away, I shoot an email off to my parents and my sister. I don't remember what the subject line was, but it was just, there's a really good picture of Ryan and I standing on top, and you can see the smaller pyramid in the background, standing side by side, hands around their shoulders, smiling real big, and that it just came out really well. So I chose that one and just put it in the body of the email and sent it off. I remember my mom responding sort of like, oh, that's such a cute picture of you and Ryan. I hope you guys are having a great trip. Clearly not understanding, what was going on. She wasn't getting it. She wasn't understanding. I responded and sort of said, yeah, you don't take a look, take in the surroundings, and where do I have to be to obtain this image? Ryan and I broke into the pyramids and climbed to the top last night. And no doubt an all caps response came back. You did what? My poor mother, I probably just about gave her a heart attack. They sort of were like, okay, you're an adult. I guess you can make you're thousands of miles away. But she probably was stressed out. Yeah.
She was worried that you were going to make an international incident or something.
Right. Then when she realized what was going on, it was like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? What are you doing over there? Just go to class and go home.
You do crazy things when you're 21 years old. Would you take a risk like this now?
No. I reflected about this. I would not. I think I would have been very jealous of my classmate who did this and be like, man, that's really cool. But I don't think I would have even gone there in my head about, well, how should I plan? No, I think, I'm 37 now. This is when I was 21, and just the risk aversion that accumulates as you age. I don't think I'd have the guts to undertake something like this. And it turns out I would have been barred from the opportunity anyway. About a year and a half afterwards, in August of 2008, I got an email from my dad. I don't remember what he said, but it was something like, gee, you guys really, motivated some changes over there. And it was a link to a news story, and I opened it up, and it was about this huge makeover of the security of the monument site. It talked about how, I think that's where I read the thing about in the 70s. It was kind of like a really popular thing to do, but that even, today, people would try to climb to the top, and the security was woefully inadequate, etc. So it was like they were installing a 12-mile chain link fence around the whole perimeter. They were going to put cameras in, alarms, motion detectors. I mean, totally. I mean, I cannot tell you how different. Complete makeover is the exact phrase. It was night and day, because this was just kind of like they put up like something. I don't know how many people between March of 2007 and August of 2008 attempted and did this climb. I'm sure some, but I imagine Ryan and I were among some of the last people that will ever be able to do that.
These things are solid rock.
Yeah,
it's not like you could really damage them, but was there any concern that, hey, this is a country's national treasure, we're going to be climbing it, desecrating it or anything? Did you ever have any thoughts about how that would be perceived?
I did wrestle with this, and I think I honestly still do. Yeah, it's a great point. Ultimately, I think that the construction started about 2550 BCE, and they're still standing, so they're clearly quite sturdy. I mean, there is the part that is open to the public, so there is foot traffic already kind of on the monument.
But it's limited, though.
It is.
Right?
It is.
They walk in. They probably walk out through a gift shop, get little keychains or something. And...
No, it's not like that. No, but it's like but if you could imagine, I don't know, let's say you're at a museum that has airplanes in it, maybe a mini little staircase. You are contained and directed. So all of the traffic is taking place in a very specific area. But, it's been around for thousands of years, Napoleon and, all of that, invasion of Egypt and wars and all kinds of natural forces and all that. It has stood the test of time quite clearly. And we did take Ryan has the knife. We weren't into that. I mean, it was cool to see someone from like 18 whatever, who decided to carve. That was cool, but didn't want to encourage that. I guess I'd have to say someone who pushes back on my rationalization about the point you're bringing up. If someone really pushed back and said like, yeah, but come on, like you're not supposed to do this, just like you're not supposed to use flash photography on the Mona Lisa or whatever, little by little, it's going to cause, I probably would have to capitulate at some point if someone really stood their ground about that, but it doesn't keep me up at night,
Yeah. If they're still okay after 4,000 years,
right.
A couple of U.S. college students aren't going to destroy them. And it sounds like they've got it blocked off because it's not going to happen anymore anyway.
Yes, no, it's not. Like I when I read the security overall, I was like, oh, whoa, yeah, no one is. I mean, unless you came up with a sufficient bribe. I mean, now it would be totally reliant on unethical security guards to give. And even then, I guess the cameras would capture it, and I'm sure that people reviewing the footage and all that.
That's funny. Your whole plan was hinging on this bribery thing, and that completely failed.
Totally failed. Can't believe it. Still can't believe it. I mean, you're not allowed. So like at another site, a major tourist site, you're not allowed to take any photographs of the inside of the temple because frankly, they want you to buy the postcards or the official images, right? Because that's another source of revenue. But very easily you could circumvent that. The odds of this plan working were actually quite good. And you're right. It like we ran into the one guard, I guess, who was uninterested in money or who just had integrity and character. So that was unlikely. This whole thing was unlikely.
If people want to contact you, how should they get in touch with you? If they have questions or if they're planning their own escapade up the side of the pyramid?
I would be happy to assist. Yeah, by email is good. And also I'm on Twitter. I'm sort of off most other social media platforms, but we can list those, I guess.
Yeah, that's easy enough. And obviously we're going to, on the show note, in the show notes for this episode, we'll have the pictures that you took from
Oh, great. Cool.
the top, so people can see that, and pretty cool.
Like I said, it is sort of, if there's ever, I don't know, you start a new job and there's like a team building, sort of like, what's interesting? I mean, it's my automatic go. I'll never do anything as cool as that ever in my life. I'm positive of it.
If you'd like to see a full transcript of this episode, as well as pictures of Alex and Ryan on top of the pyramid, you can get all of that in the show notes for this episode at whatwasthatlike.com/137. If you enjoyed this episode and you like hearing stories of people trying to do something without getting caught, you might enjoy my conversation with Emily from episode 79. She was trying to get through airport security, and under her dress was a large volume of cocaine.
We just have to ask you a couple further questions. And I was like, okay. And they're like, do you have any drugs in your suitcase? And I was like, no, which I didn't. And they're like, okay, well, just to check, like, we're going to send it through this x-ray and then we're going to scan it. And so they scanned it with like an ion scanner and it came up clean. And I could kind of breathe a little bit, but I still couldn't look him in the face. I just couldn't, and then he asked me, okay, well, Miss O'Brien, we're actually going to have to do a body search. And he's like, is there anything that you want to say before we do that? Do you have drugs on you right now? And then I stared at the floor and my ears were ringing so loud. And it took me so long to answer that they had to ask me again. And that's when I looked up at him straight in the eye and I said, yes.
That's episode 79, titled Emily Was Caught as a Drug Mule. I have to tell you, I continue to be totally amazed at the conversations we have in the podcast listener Facebook group. Yeah, we talk about podcast episodes, but there's a whole lot more than that. Recently, I posted a question for the group. I asked, what's something you wish you could forget? And wow, some of the answers just blew me away. There were the funny ones, like one person who said, the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. But there were others telling stories of past abuse or losing a child or a grandchild, situations where it's easy to understand why you would want to forget those things. Just story after story from people who really just opened up and spilled their heart out. So far, there are over 100 responses to that question. It just confirms the fact that you never know what someone has been through, and I just love being a part of all that. If you haven't yet joined us there, I hope you come over to whatwasthatlike.com/Facebook and get in on those amazing discussions. Graphics for this episode were created by Bob Bretz. Full episode transcription was created by James Lai. And now, here we are at this week's listener story. Do you have a story? I'll bet you do. If you have something interesting you can tell in about 5 to 10 minutes, record it on your phone and email it to me at scott@whatwasthatlike.com. We end every episode with a listener story, so you might just hear your story right here. This week's story is about an undetected injury. Stay safe, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hey there, this is Maya. When I was 18, I was invited to go sledding. It was my boyfriend at the time, his aunt, uncle, cousin, and myself. My first slide down the hill, my sled, which was one of those saucer-type sleds, it spun around, so I was sledding backwards. Could not see where I was going. I decided to just hang on and hold through. I ended up hitting a tree very hard. When I came to, I was nowhere near a tree. I had bounced back from the force and landed several feet away with a broken neck. I did not know I had broke my neck, so I stood up and walked away. In fact, I was more concerned with my boyfriend's aunt because I thought I had hit her. Little did I know that any minute turn of my head or my body could paralyze me from the neck down. Out of all the odds, and throughout this whole experience, I was not paralyzed at all. And unfortunately, 9 out of 10 people who experienced the same type of neck fracture are paralyzed from the neck down. Luckily, I was convinced to go to the hospital to get checked out. If anything, I had a concussion. Whatever, sure, won't hurt things. While awaiting my x-rays, I was getting in and out of bed to use the bathroom and walk around with a broken neck. It's just crazy. And once the doctors found out that my C6 was fractured, I could not stop hearing the word miracle. Coming from the nurses, the doctors, my family members, it still echoes in my head today. From there, I was airlifted to a bigger hospital where I laid prostrate for 6 whole days awaiting my emergency surgery. It was brutal, to say the least. Now, 10 years later, I still have my cadaver bone, 4 screws, and a metal plate behind my throat, holding things together. And I can walk, dance, and run around as much as I want. I feel like the luckiest person alive, and I'm so thankful. A few interesting tidbits that I'd like to add from this experience. I'm going to brag for a second. So this happened 3 months before graduating high school, and I still graduated in the top 10% with honors. And this is actually pretty funny. I never was a huge sweet person. I never really had a sweet tooth or anything until this happened. And now, to this day, I love sweets. And the first thing I ate after coming home from the hospital was an entire box of Chips Ahoy. Not like me at all. And my mom, she says that the man I got my cadaver bone from must have been a sweets lover. So thank you to him, because sweets are amazing.